Welcome back. South Carolina's state Senate is debating a bill today that would restrict abortion in the state, limiting abortion access from the current 22 weeks to just 6. Now, that's before many women know that they're pregnant. The bill already passed the South Carolina House last week, but is expected to face some pushback in the state's Republican-led Senate. A bipartisan coalition of the state's 5 female senators are attempting to block the ban. At the same time, Texas is facing new challenges to its 6-week abortion ban, as 8 new plaintiffs joined a lawsuit this week alleging they were denied access to abortion in cases where their pregnancies endangered their lives despite exceptions for medical emergencies. These women joined 5 original plaintiffs in asking for an emergency stay on the law. I'm joined now by Molly Duane, the lead attorney on this case for the Center for Reproductive Rights. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start off with these 8 new plaintiffs who have joined the Texas suit. Can you tell us about their experiences? Why did they want to be involved in this case?
Well, what we have seen since we filed our lawsuit in March of this year is an outpouring of support from people in Texas and people across the country. And most notably, a number of women have reached out to us. I think I've talked to at least 25 women since we filed the lawsuit in March saying, you know, your story is my story. And what we have seen from the state of Texas and, you know, other states that you mentioned, like Florida and South Carolina and North Carolina, is that, well, these are just bans that, you know, still allow abortion in cases of rape, incest, or life of the mother. But what our lawsuit shows is that's simply not true. These so-called exceptions to abortion bans do not function at all. And in fact, they terrorize doctors and make it truly impossible for people in life-threatening medical conditions to get the care that they need. And so our lawsuit is seeking, you know, at a bare minimum, these women with severe pregnancy complications should be getting abortion care in their home communities.
Let me ask you to respond, and you talk about the exemptions. The president of the Texas Right for Life says the law does actually provide medical emergency exemptions, and that the issue is with messaging instead of what's actually in the law. Let me play you a little bit of this and let you respond on the other side.
We do have doctors in Texas who are misled about what the law allows them to do. And so there are some doctors in Texas that believe that they can't intervene and they can't help a woman if she's having a miscarriage or if she's having an ectopic pregnancy. That is, you know, an issue of implementation, not an issue of the law. And the problem here is that the usual groups that help inform those doctors have abrogated that role.
And that is the president of the Texas Right for Life, talking to my colleague, Yamiche Alcindor. What is your response to his argument?
My response is that politicians should not be micromanaging healthcare because this is inevitably what happens. When he talks about writing a medical emergency into this law, if you actually look at the language of the law, it is extremely confusing. It is not written with medical terminology. It does not use phrases that any physician knows how to interpret. And more to the point, right? These states that have abortion bans in place have also some of the most fervent politicians pushing anti-abortion policies and saying they will vehemently enforce their abortion bans. In fact, Attorney General Paxton, you know, who's the defendant in our lawsuit, when the Biden administration issued guidance after Roe v. Wade was overturned, saying that, you know, just a reminder, under federal law, when a patient's life is at risk, you must provide an abortion. Well, what did Ken Paxton do? He challenged that guidance, and now it's not in effect, in part, in Texas. So what are doctors supposed to do? Of course they are terrified. Of course they are confused. And what the experiences of our plaintiffs in this lawsuit show is that this is not just a doctor here or there who doesn't know how to interpret the law. This is a widespread, pervasive, and government-inflicted public health crisis. And all of these activists and politicians need to be held account for the laws that they have put in effect.
And just to follow up with you on that point, you talk about doctors being terrorized. We've reviewed the law. Is it really aimed at criminalizing doctors, and is that the core issue?
Well, there are several abortion bans in place in Texas. There is a criminal abortion ban, which has some of the harshest penalties in the country. 99 years in prison if you get it wrong, right? What doctor is going to risk their liberty for a prosecutor or a jury saying, actually that abortion was not necessary to save that patient's life.
Let me
ask.
On
top of that,
yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that on top of that, we have the 6-week ban, which has been in place since September of 2021, remember? And this is the vigilante bounty hunting law that makes it so that neighbors can come after neighbors for presumably violating this ban. So it's really an impossible scheme for doctors in Texas to be operating under. And you don't have to take my word for it. One of the plaintiffs in this lawsuit who joined this week is an OBGYN herself, who not only was the doctor for one of the original plaintiffs, but had to travel out of state when she received a devastating diagnosis during her own pregnancy. So I think that really speaks for itself.
Molly, just very quickly, we talked at the top about South Carolina State Senate hearing debate today on a 6-week abortion ban. Just a yes or no, if that passes, do you see yourself challenging that as a next move?
Well, I feel like I'm living in Groundhog Day here because the Center for Reproductive Rights already challenged a 6-week ban in South Carolina and won. In fact, the South Carolina Supreme Court recognized a state constitutional right to abortion. And what is the legislature doing? Passing another ban again? Yeah, I think it's safe to say that law will be challenged if it passes.
Okay. Molly, Duane, thank you so much for your time and your perspective. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.